I think I was 8 or 9, and I thought I was being sneaky, and I thought I'm gonna have chocolate Horlicks, and I dipped my finger in it and ate it. And clearly, it was not. It was extremely bitter, and there started my lifelong hatred for coffee. So I'm Samyukta. I did my PhD in neuroscience, specifically neuro-oncology, so brain cancer kind of stuff. One day I was sitting and working, and she was like, "Hey, can you order chai?" So I just searched on Swiggy and I found Chai Kings. I ordered and we got the Chai King flask and we started drinking, and that's become a ritual in my house now. My uncle, who's really close to me, he had a cardiac arrest. Something that I heard the doctor saying was that he was brain dead. But that thing kind of stuck with me. So I'm Samyukta. I did my PhD in neuroscience, specifically neuro-oncology, so brain cancer kind of stuff. But I guess we'll talk about that later. So my coffee tea journey started very young, but not really. It's a complicated story. It's gonna be a long story. So when I was little, I only used to have chocolate Horlicks with my milk, and my mom, but like typical South Indian family, so everyone in my family would have coffee. And my mom had the coffee powder jar open on the kitchen counter. I think I was 8 or 9, and I thought I was being sneaky, and I thought I'm gonna have chocolate Horlicks, and I dipped my finger in it and ate it. And clearly, it was not. It was extremely bitter, and there started my lifelong hatred for coffee. And my parents also never really, tried to give me coffee and tea, so it was whatever. And then I went for undergrad to the US, and there it was like very much a coffee culture, like Starbucks, all that was very huge. We had a local coffee shop, which was the Caribou Coffee. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try. Then I started having bubble tea and chai because I'm like, okay, I can't do coffee, but chai is fine. And that's how I started chai. And I tried to have coffee, but every time I had caffeine, it would give me a panic attack. I would literally like my heart would be racing. I could not like focus on anything. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of beating the purpose because I'm drinking coffee to focus and study. So I'm like, okay, we'll stick to chai. But even with chai, sometimes I'll get really hyper and I cannot sleep and I'll be jumping around. So that was how my whole journey started. But then I went to my PhD. Now, PhD, let me tell you, coffee is like a bonding thing for everyone in academia. Literally, my lab, whenever we're like, okay, we're all tired, we're working all day in the lab, we're like, okay, we need a bonding experience, we need a break, we would walk down to the cafeteria to get coffee. So I kind of had to get coffee because I couldn't be the only one who wasn't drinking. So I was peer pressured into drinking coffee, but it was like Americano, so it was like black coffee. And you know how I feel about bitter coffee. So I started putting like milk, cream, or whatever nonsense in it, and I had some kind of nonsense. And so I started drinking coffee with them at that point. And then I realized the joy of drinking coffee. And from that time on, I enjoyed coffee, I enjoyed tea. But I'm now become so particular about my coffee and tea that it has to be strong, it has to have good flavor. For me to even enjoy coffee or tea. Otherwise, I will just not drink it because it has to be that perfect. And then fast forward, I moved back to India like 8-ish months ago, and I moved to Chennai like 6 months ago, and here I live with my grandmom. So it's just my grandmom and I, and she has this habit of drinking her morning coffee, her evening coffee, and then third thing she'll have chai in the late evening before dinner. So after I moved here, so she used to buy one packet of milk, but now that I'm there and I'm also having coffee, it was not enough. So then one day I was sitting and working, and she was like, "Hey, can you order chai?" And I didn't know where to order from because I just moved back to India after like 10 years. So I just searched on Swiggy and I found Chai Kings. So that is the first time I even heard the name Chai Kings. I ordered and we got the Chai King flask and we started drinking, and that's become a ritual in my house now. Where my grandmom and I, every time, like I'll be working, I'll have my earphones on, I'll be on like work calls or something, and my grandma will sheepishly come and stand next to me near my desk, and she'll just keep looking at me, and I'm like, what? She's like, can you order chai? And it's invariably we always order Chai Kings. So that's how my Chai Kings journey started. Um, and then I started this new lecture series in Chennai called Pint of View Chennai, which is like lectures over drinks. So it's like lectures in a bar. But having the lectures in a bar concept in Chennai was a little complicated. Uh, so we're like, okay, let's try to alternate. Let's try to bring something a little different. So we try to do a 90s nostalgia kind of event, and it was on nutrition. So that's when I reached out to Chai Kings if they want to like collaborate with us and like we can use chai for our event. Um, and that's how my like relationship with Chai Kings grew even more. And we had so much chai left over from that event because I ordered way too much, way more than the people that were there. I think I took 3 flasks of leftover chai, and my grandma and I had that for like 3 days, I think. Growing up, I was always like, I was pretty good in most of this, most academics, also like extracurriculars, all of that. But when I thought about what I want to be in the future, I always said artist. But then I started, around sixth grade is when I think we started having biology, physics, chemistry in sciences. And that's when I studied human biology for the first time. And I really enjoyed it. Like just learning about what's happening in your body was just so cool to me. And I was obsessed. And it helped that I was also really good at it. And then around seventh grade, when I was in seventh grade, my uncle, who's really close to me, he had a cardiac arrest and he had lack of oxygen supply to his brain for a significant amount of time. So even though they resuscitated him after that, and he was in the ICU for like a week or so, we all saw him. I was like a 12-year-old at the time, so I didn't really understand a lot of it, but something that I heard the doctor saying was that he was brain dead. And eventually we had to pull the plug and he passed away. But that thing kind of stuck with me because my mom tried to explain about how because he's brain dead, it's not worth it to keep him on, like keep him alive, like just plugged into machines. I just didn't understand it because when we saw him, he was breathing, his heart was beating, everything was working fine in his body. So why does the being brain dead thing have such a big issue? So that's actually the first time I got really interested in neuroscience because I wanted to figure out what happened to him, and the child in me wanted to make sure that that doesn't happen to someone in the future. And that's when I started reading a lot of neuroscience books, like not textbooks and all that, but like genuinely go and read books by neuroscientists, by doctors, by neurologists. And I was it was like I was exposed to a whole new world. It was amazing just learning how your brain works and how fascinating it is. How honestly, even now after studying neuroscience for all these years, I still think it's so insane how our brain works. And I wanted to, at the time, I was like, I decided in eighth grade that I'm good in biology. I love neuroscience. I want to figure out a way that what happened to my uncle doesn't happen to someone else. So I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a neurosurgeon, and I'm going to figure out a way to regenerate the dead neurons in the brain, and so that this doesn't happen to anyone else. So I did took the stereotypical path of anyone who goes to medicine. I took science courses. I did science stream in 11th and 12th, and then I applied for med school. But then after I applied for med school and I was waiting on the results, two of my friends from school, they wanted to explore studying abroad. So they took me to an education fair. So we went there, and that's when I learned that there is a subject called neuroscience where I can just learn neuroscience and I can do research and I can fix that same issue that I was talking about regenerating neurons, but not as a physician, not as a clinical doctor. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I never wanted to be a practicing doctor. I wanted to do research. I wanted to study the brain. So I came back home. I told my grandparents because I was living with them at the time. And my parents obviously were completely taken aback because for 5 years I was like, I want to do medicine. I'm going to be a neurosurgeon, which they were already against, but they finally wrapped their head around. And now I'm like, no, I don't want to do neuroscience. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the UK because, grew up with Harry Potter, so London was always fascinating. But US also has neuroscience, so I'm like, okay, I'll apply to both. But my dad was very against it. My mom actually was very supportive because even before I realized that I didn't want to be a physician, she knew that that's not something I would want to do with my life. but she didn't say anything. So once I told her that this is what I want to do, she was very supportive, but my dad wasn't because, again, only child, daughter, 18 years old, they didn't want me to go somewhere at such a young age. Literally everyone in my family was against it. But my dad said, okay, take a gap year. But I did take a gap year because my dad said, take this time, study for the med exams again, reapply to those, but also figure out a way to apply to these neuroscience universities. And if of your own accord you can get into these universities, I'll send you. So I took that year, I applied to the SATs, I prepped for the SATs, I prepped for med school, I applied to all these universities all by myself. But thankfully, I did get into a bunch of universities, both in the UK and US. But when I compared the two, it made sense for me at the time to go to the US, even though I was not someone who had the dream of going to the US ever, because the UK education system is so similar to the Indian education system. So the course is 3 years, like any bachelor's course in India, but you only focus on neuroscience, and it was very clinical heavy neuroscience, and you don't do anything else. Versus in the US, it's 4 years. I can do a bunch of other courses. I can do all these extracurriculars that I've always been interested in. So that was the plan. So fast forward, I went to the US. I took a bunch of courses. I took a bunch of neuroscience courses as well. And one of the cool things that you have in the curriculum there is you take electives. So you have your basic neuroscience courses, but you take electives. And I took this one elective that completely changed how I thought about neuroscience. Because up until then, for me, neuroscience is biology or psychology or neuropsychology. But that course was taught by a professor who studied mathematics and then did his PhD in computer science, but now is one of the best neuroscientists and studies the brain and teaches about the brain. And it was so fascinating to see how interdisciplinary neuroscience truly is, because you can come from any background whatsoever, but neuroscience applies to all of it, and you can study neuroscience from so many different perspectives. So that course was amazing because we learned so much about how the brain works, but also eventually tried to answer the question of what is morality. So fast forward, I applied to my PhD program. Went to Dartmouth. I did my PhD. I was in academia for like 5 years. Did my PhD for 5 years. But during that time, COVID also happened, and I was seeing all these things of people talking about like how mRNA vaccine will edit their genes and being worried about that. And as someone who studied biology for so long, I was like, that it's not that simple. And a vaccine is not going to do that to you. But that's when I realized the big gap between academia and what science research is happening and what the general public knows about. So yeah, so like I finished my PhD, and initially my plan was to do a postdoc and do a stereotypical like academia thing where I teach at a university. But this whole process of doing my PhD, staying in academia, made me realize as much as I enjoy talking about science and teaching science and I'm interested in science education, I don't want to take that typical route. So I did try a couple of different things. I did a couple of different jobs, but then I realized I want to focus on the science education. So I decided to come back to India. So I came back to India 8 months ago, and I was trying to figure out how exactly I want to go about this. And so a couple of things that I've done since I came back to India was I was lucky enough that when I worked with Chai Kings for my Pint of View event back in January, I worked with Pritish, who works for Chai Kings, and he was a great he was wonderful to talk to. We talked a lot about neuroscience, and then he reached out to me like a month or so ago, and he said, "Hey, do you want to do a neuroscience talk and event, some like a new kind of experience?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I mean, anytime you want to talk about neuroscience, I'm there." So something that we did was I talked about the neuroscience of vision, of how vision and how your brain perceives your reality of what you see is not just based on your eyes, but on all of your senses. So I talked about that, but to make it really hit hard and for people to understand that concept, what we did was we followed that talk by a blindfolded taste testing experience. So we did the talk, we blindfolded all of our attendees, and we had 4 rounds of different kinds of food, and we had people taste it and focus on the taste, on the texture, on what memories it ignited in them, all of that, to identify what they're eating. So they didn't have vision, but they had to use everything else. And it was truly an amazing experience. It's the first time I've done anything of this kind. I've given pure science talks. I've given talks to non-experts and all of that, but it's been talks. This was super unique because there was laughter, people were super excited, they were engaging. It was just like a really fun experience overall. So that's when that passion in me for education and neuroscience really got reignited. So now I'm trying to figure out what else I want to do with this newly reignited passion. But yeah, I'm focused on science education, about talking about science. So anytime you want to work with me to bring a new kind of neuroscience event, any kind of event, or just purely talk about neuroscience, you can ping me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and I'd be more than happy to be involved and to talk more neuroscience.